Hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, What's New in Microsoft Dynamics CRM? We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us. My name is Diane Graziano and I'm a Business Development Coordinator located in our Cleveland office. Our presenter today will be Brian Garrity, a CRM consultant located in our Cincinnati office. There are a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so that we can unmute you or submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. Brian will be answering questions throughout the presentation. Also, feel free to email myself or Brian directly, and we'll be happy to get back to you. Before we jump into the CRM solution, I'd like to take a moment to provide you with some background on Socius and how we can work with your organizations like yours to accelerate their growth and profitability. A CRM implementation is only as good as the team you put behind it. That's why selecting the right partner is just as critical to a successful CRM implementation as the software solution that you choose. We believe that our background and experience at Socius demonstrates that we are the kind of partner that delivers successful implementation projects and ongoing services that support the growth of your company. Socius is the Latin word for partner or ally, which is the kind of relationship that we try to have with the almost 2,000 organizations we have implemented business management solutions for over the last 28 years. While implementation projects are a big part of what we do, the true measure of our partnership is demonstrated in the wide array of ongoing services that we provide to our clients to ensure that their software solutions continue to align with their goals and meet their changing business needs long term. This level of service has earned Socius a highly respected reputation in the industry. We have consistently been recognized as a top partner by software industry experts, winning numerous awards both from Microsoft and from independent publications. We've been named the Microsoft Inner Circle 18 of possible 21 times, which means we are in the top 1% of all Dynamics partners in the world, and we were recently selected as one of only 3 Microsoft Dynamics Master VARs in the U.S., meaning our processes and methodologies are recognized as best practices by Microsoft. Regardless of where you are in your selection process, we encourage you weigh your software partner decision just as heavily as your software solution decision. Socius has 90 professionals located in multiple offices. Headquartered in Dublin, Ohio, we proudly serve clients across the Midwest and beyond through our 12 sales affiliates and 19 offices located throughout the U.S. This slide represents a visual to the Socius methodology recognized by Microsoft. This is how we lay out the plan for our different pieces and parts, building the solution together, deploying it out to the enterprise for everyone to use, and going live and forward into the future to make sure it is a successful implementation. Our defined methodologies allow us to support our 4 key solution offerings. Those are comprised of CRM, ERP, BI, and SharePoint solutions. While each of these solutions are powerful standing alone, a true business solution is achieved when these aspects of your business are integrated. Hopefully that provided a brief introduction of who Socius is and what we do. I'd like to transition this presentation over to Brian Garrity.
Great. Thank you very much, Diane. I appreciate that. Well, as Diane said, my name is Brian Garrity, and I'm an applications consultant here at Socius. If you don't know what that means, you're in good company. I'm pretty sure that my own mother doesn't know what I do for a living. The good news is that I'm here to present what is new in CRM 2011. So for those of you who may be on 3.0 or 4.0, or perhaps have not had the opportunity to be introduced to CRM at all, you're going to get to see what I like to call the harbor tour of everything that is available from a new feature perspective inside of CRM 2011. Now, I have been with Socius for about 2 years, and I've been certified twice over by Microsoft in that time. But I am by no means new to CRM. I've been working with various CRM platforms for over the last 7 years. So this is, in fact, my 5th CRM platform. I actually started out prior to coming to Socius with a local CRM company on sugar, and prior to that, I was actually on Salesforce.com. So for those of you who may be coming to this webinar and looking at things from that vantage point or with a lens from knowing that kind of software, please do feel free to raise your hand and tell Cheryl or Diane whatever questions you might have, and I'll do my very best to answer them. So I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen here and give everybody just a second to see where we're starting. And the very first thing that I wanted to point out is something that's brand new to the latest version of CRM 2011. And I will point out that I am on not only the CRM 2011 version, but update rollup 12, which is the most recent release that you can be on. If you're in the online version of CRM, which I am for this demonstration, you are automatically on that version of CRM. So what I'd ask you to notice is that I am not using Internet Explorer, and that's something that's brand new to CRM, so I wanted to draw attention to it. Up until this point, that is to say about December or January, everybody who wanted to interact with CRM was either forced to do so through Internet Explorer or through their Outlook clients, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But I am a big proponent of Google Chrome, and so you'll notice today that I'll be doing my demonstration from that browser. But if you happen to be an aficionado of other browsers such as Mozilla or Safari, you're more than welcome to utilize those browsers to access your CRM solution as well now. That automatically means that you're going to be able to access things from your iPhone or your iPad and utilize all the features and functionality that you'll be used to, all of the things that I'm going to show you today. So for purposes of our demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and put myself back into full screen mode so that we have a more immersive experience. I tend to like to have things in a very minimalist perspective, so I hope that doesn't confuse anybody. Please, again, as I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to raise your hands and let either Cheryl or Diane know, and they will interrupt me and let me know that you have questions, and I'll do my very best to answer them at that point. So let's get started. The very first thing that you'll notice as you look at my screen is that I have what is referred to in CRM 2011 as a dashboard up. Now, these dashboards are meant to be kind of a heads-up display, visualizing your data in a way that is meaningful to you. Now, there are a handful of dashboards that come out of the box, as it were, with the system, but these are dashboards that I have specifically customized for a demonstration purpose. I think there's a rule out there somewhere that says that if you're doing a sales demonstration, you actually have to have a pipeline. So here's my pipeline. You can see I have estimated revenue by pipeline phase. And if for some of you that's a little bit too tiny, I can zoom in. I also have the additional option of being able to just blow my charts up, and I can minimize my ribbon that you might have noticed at the top, and I can get right in down and dirty with my data. One of the really fantastic aspects or tools that are now available in CRM 2011 is something referred to as the slicer tool. And we'll get into that immediately. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pick out something that would be in my solution design phase of my pipeline. Again, because this is such an extensible system, I have the ability to customize or configure however I would lay out things in my particular pipeline. I don't have to subscribe to what Microsoft believes my pipeline needs to be in terms of categories. You can utilize your lexicon, and we can make this very much something that fits around your processes and procedures and not something to which you have to grow accustomed. So if I click on my opportunities, you can see I have open opportunities here in my solutions design phase, which you can see by my legend down here. I've got this little tool that pops up. As I said, it's called the slicer tool. Now, I may very well want to see how my open opportunities are broken down by owner. So I've simply selected that as a field, and when I click on the OK button, it's going to go ahead and redraw all of my opportunities in the system. Now, you'll notice that we hopped chart types. We started out in a funnel. Now we've gone over to a bar chart. We don't have to stick with that. We could go back and pick a different chart type, or I could keep drilling into my data. Now I may want to see what kinds of accounts make up this particular set of opportunities that Brian Garrity, my salesperson, happens to have here in his system, or in the system. So if I select my pie chart here, I can go ahead and click OK again, and it'll allow me to drill even further into my data. There aren't limits in terms of all of this. I can continue to drill. I can continue to get really fantastic information and derive all kinds of insights just on the ability to drill into my data in this way. So again, I encourage you, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to raise your hand and let Cheryl or Diane know, and they'll relay those to me. You'll notice when I click X to get out of that chart, it didn't take me all the way back to the initial funnel chart that we started at. It simply put that pie chart back up on my dashboard for me. And if I wanted to keep going with that, I could. If I wanted to hop into another chart, I could do that. And then the final thing that I'll show you in terms of dashboards here is that I have the ability to select this middle button. And what that does is it allows me to see the records that make up the chart that existed on that dashboard. So in this case, you can see I have a lot of activities that have occurred. I, as a salesperson, have been very, very busy, but somebody needs to scold my, my counterparts, my other sales colleagues. They have not been doing quite as much work as I have. Now, again, these are very easy to configure. We can put these together in a minimal amount of time and without what I like to call customization, right? So I don't need anybody who speaks another language besides English to get these things done. I, who only speak English, can do this myself. And you too, you can as well. Okay. So I'm happy to start with charts, but they're intrinsically tied to something else that most people want to see inside of CRM 2011, and that is your goals. Now, goals are very similar to charts, but they're different in many unique respects as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to some goals, and we can take a look and sort of figure out how those things are different. So goals is replacing functionality that used to exist in the system known as quotas. So if you want to track not only what your dollar targets are for your given salespeople, but perhaps activity counts for your customer service reps, that's a great use case for a goal. And you can see I have 4 goals that exist on my dashboard right now, and I'm going to go ahead and blow them up one at a time and sort of talk about them. So I've got a number of different things going on that I'd like to draw your attention to. First and foremost, I've created individual goals based on the salespeople that I have in my system. You'll notice a little blue donut here, and this is actually the target that I've set forth for each of my salespeople so that they know exactly what's expected of them at any given point in time. Now, these goals happen to be over the current fiscal quarter, but that could be over a fiscal year, that could be over a several-year period, it could even be over a custom period if you so desire. Now, you'll notice also I have this little black triangle here, and if we were to divvy up our, in this case, fiscal quarter evenly over the course of the amount of time that it would be active, you would notice that this black arrow will move up incrementally as if you had averaged out exactly what I was supposed to accomplish over the course of that time period. So one would expect that at this point in our fiscal quarter that Brian should have achieved a $386,000 actual money or recognized money in terms of our business, but he's falling short in spite of our best efforts. The green reflects what he has actually done, and this sort of purpley gray or lavender, there's jury's still out on that, is the in-progress money. So in this case, I've set that up to be opportunities that are still open, whereas this green is opportunities that have been considered won. Now, sometimes it's kind of hard to see all of your data broken up like this, and you need to see it sort of in an all-up, roll-up sort of an interface, and that's what I've done down at the bottom here. I've gone ahead and made what I call a parent goal, or what is referred to as a parent goal. I've set that as a company goal, and I essentially have just rolled all 4 of the goals we were just looking at into this one goal so I can see where we are as an organization. And I can see very quickly that we're in trouble in terms of money. We are not anywhere near where we wanted to be, so I know we need to do a whole lot more in terms of activities. So speaking of activities, let's go take a look at those. This is a similar sort of an interface, a little bit different in that it's used to count activities, so phone calls or emails or tasks or all of those things if you so desire. I, Brian Garrity, the salesperson, have been falling short again, but I'm doing a little bit better than most of my colleagues. You can see I should be up at 24 on a target of 25 at this point in our campaign. And once more, I have created a parent goal to sort of roll up everything and give us a sense of where we ought to be. So they're very flexible. You can utilize these in a number of different ways to track even unique activities, things that Microsoft may not have conceived of, but the goals are very flexible, and they're a great option for a number of people who need to track sort of benchmarks and where we are against something, or where my salespeople are against each other or against their targets. A wonderful way to utilize goals. Okay. So we've taken a little bit of time. We've talked about charts and dashboards. Charts are available too if I were simply to go over to my opportunities and pop open this little pane over here to the side. I can start to look at some of the system charts that come with a given system, or I can even look at some of the ones that I've created on my own. We'll see that one again in a minute. But right here, you can see that pipeline phase funnel that I showed you right out of the gate. So I'd like to take a second now and sort of talk about some of the different ways that CRM is available to you. We already talked about how the system is now browser agnostic, but there are a number of different ways that you can utilize the various devices that you might have to interact with CRM as well. So if you have a mobile device, it is most certainly available as an app, whether you are using an iPhone, whether you're using now a Windows phone, or even an Android phone. But additionally, you can utilize your tablets to access this information. And clearly, we've utilized the web a lot. But we're going to shift over now and take a look at the ability to access this stuff from within Outlook. So in a normal environment, I'd be giving this as a demonstration to a prospect. And I would talk about how the initial dashboard that we were looking at was indeed more of an executive or C-level executive kind of top-down view of your data. This is where I would sort of step into the shoes of a salesperson and say, let's look at how we would interact with this CRM system on a daily basis without having to log in through a web interface. Because the idea from Microsoft's perspective is really that we're going to empower salespeople without getting in their way. Don't stand in their way in terms of what they need to accomplish and what they need to do. Don't give them more overhead. Give them something that will allow them to complete their jobs in a meaningful, fast, organized way, and help them. Give them real tools. So you'll notice that I have this demonstration email all set up. I sent myself one. Again, I'm all over the system. I was a salesperson. I'm giving the demonstration, and now I'm the guy requesting information as well. But there are a couple of ways that, from this perspective, I can start to interact with CRM. So put on your hats and imagine that you are a salesperson now, and we're going to dump this email directly into CRM. So from Outlook, you can see I've got my ribbon right up at the top, and this is all new as of Office 2010. So those of you who maybe are on older versions of Office haven't seen this, this would be forthcoming for you. But the idea is that I've got these tabs along the top, and you'll see this again in CRM. But I have one that's specific to CRM. So if I wanted to do something with this record, I could either go to this ribbon and interact with it. Perhaps I want to turn this into a lead or something along those lines. Or I could simply right-click on this and say Track in CRM. And what you're going to notice when that happens is, well, a couple of things. First, I've got this little people icon that has shown up. If you've got eagle eyes, you might be able to see that. I also have this little window that has shown up down at the bottom here, and this means that this email is being tracked in CRM. And you'll notice that the CRM automatically looked at my email address, briangarrity@gmail.com, and has associated that with a record that already existed in CRM. So right out of the gate here, if I click on this record, I have the ability to start to interact with CRM, and you'll notice I never had to log in. That's kind of a really nice way, a nice feature of CRM, and something that is miles different, worlds different from any other industry leader. So additionally, I may need to associate this communication with a given, say, opportunity. So I have the ability to either set regarding down here, or with that right click, I could say set regarding, and I can associate this with, say, an open opportunity, an open account, something in which I may need to track this in the future. So I could pick absolutely any one of these. And now, by going into this record, I can go to the closed activities, and there's my email. Hot dummy. There's my email. It automatically tracked. And because this opportunity is tied to, in this case, the Bank of Montreal, if I were to go into the Bank of Montreal, I could also go into close activities, and everything will roll up. So as long as you've got those connections in place, I can roll that information up, and you can really get a great sense of how your people are communicating out, and more importantly, perhaps, how your contacts are communicating back with you. So those are a couple of the ways that you can interact with CRM. I will tell you that you also have the ability to layer in what's called CRM for Outlook, and you can see that I have that down here at the bottom. If I click on this solution, this add-in, it starts to look very much like the experience that I had just a moment ago from the web interface. So I can get all my dashboards, and I'm going to go ahead and change this one because I should be looking from the Sales Rep Daily dashboard. And you can see that I have my information right here available to me. If I want to dive into that, again, my slicer tool is available to me. I can dive into my funnel. You can see this one's based on my open opportunities, not the organization's as a whole. But I may have my activities that I'm expected to complete as well listed out here so that I know exactly how to plan my day. So those are almost all the ways that you can interact with CRM. The final way that I will detail is offline. And I know that might sound kind of odd at first when you consider that your data is living out in the cloud, but you can elect to choose a certain subset of your records, not only your contacts, but your accounts and your opportunities as well, and determine which of those carry with you in Outlook, so that if you happen to be a salesperson out in the field and you need to record a conversation or some notes or something along those lines, you can spin up your Outlook and you can attach that information directly to your record, and the next time you're online, that'll automatically sync up for you. A lot of people are very excited about that as an option inside of CRM. So not available anywhere else, but pretty darn cool. So the next thing I'd like to discuss is not something that I can show you, but hopefully I can paint a vivid word picture. Many of you who may be on older versions of CRM right now are probably familiar with something referred to as a workflow. Well, with the advent of CRM 2011, Microsoft wanted to take that a step further, or perhaps a step in a different direction depending on your perspective, and they have introduced something called dialogues. And dialogues are very kind of amorphous to describe to somebody without a solid example, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about one of my existing clients. Hopefully we won't embarrass them. So my client has a number of salespeople who are in-house, and they're constantly making phone calls outbound throughout the course of the day and trying to sell things to potential customers. And as they do become successful, they will add line items to a given order, and they will click into an order record, and maybe it'll help if I pull one up so that everybody can sort of visualize that. Let's say that I've got an opportunity open here, and this is an order. I can open this record, and I can click on Start Dialogue, which is exactly what they do. And there is a dialogue that exists here that says Process Credit Card. And it gives them the ability to run through a very scripted, very structured kind of interaction with the system that will allow them to pick up the name of the individual on the order, look for any credit cards that may be associated with that individual, select the credit card that they may want to use in this individual transaction, and then decide how much they want to charge on that individual transaction. Now, I took it a step further because I developed this particular dialogue for this client, and I set up what's called a recursion, but it basically allows them to continue to go through this dialogue process until they've billed the entire amount against the order. Not a big deal if you're selling $75 trinkets or something along those lines, but might not work for you if you're selling tens of thousands of dollar services or something along those lines. But it does illustrate the point. It can give somebody a very specified, very prescribed way to interact with records and ensure that data gets filled in a very specific way so that it is not only clean, but you can make good decisions on that data. So if you have additional questions about that, again, please don't hesitate to ask Cheryl or Diane, and I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. Okay. So one thing I'll draw your attention to while we're here on the opportunity, What you're looking at here that says Inside View is not a default piece of functionality inside a CRM. It is, in fact, what's referred to as a solution. Now, the easiest way to think about this is if you're familiar with an app store, either the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store, it works very much like that, but for CRM. There are a number of developers out there that Microsoft has engaged, and some who've started developing on their own, that have developed things that you can layer into your CRM solution. And the field is wide and varied, if you believe it, because there are any number of things that you can do with CRM, and there are any number of things that people want to do with CRM. So in this case, somebody has attempted to create an integration into social networks, so things like Facebook and into LinkedIn, so that as a salesperson, as perhaps I pull up a contact record, it'll automatically pull up or try and run a search against that person so that I can get a little bit more insight before I maybe cold call them. So there are a lot of different ways that you can utilize a variety of solutions inside of CRM, but it is something that's new in CRM 2011, so it's something I wanted to make you aware of. Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my, my web interface if it's all right with everybody. One of the things that is brand new in CRM 2011, and I personally am very, very excited about, is the ability to set default views. Now, any of you that have worked in the older versions of CRM, say 4.0 or 3.0, know that it can be very difficult to pick something besides whatever the default view happens to be. So if I were on Open Opportunities or My Open Opportunities, I couldn't, for instance, set whichever view I wanted to as my default view when I come into the system. It always defaults back to the same thing. Now, with the advent of CRM 2011, I have the ability to go to this view ribbon and say, set this as my default view, and that's available across the system. So not just in opportunities, but in any record type that either exists in the system today or that you create as you extend the functionality inside of CRM. So we've covered quite a lot already. I do want to make sure that I talk about one other thing, and again, this isn't something I can necessarily show you, but I can talk about it in some detail, is the concept of role-based forms. Now, within any entity that exists in CRM, you have the ability to utilize, create, deploy role-based forms. And what that means to you is that you may have an instance where there is a particular record, and somebody needs one view of that record, and somebody in another part of the organization needs a completely different view of that record. And the great example that I have now is, this is something I've just done for a recent client. They have more or less dock workers who are taking equipment coming in for service right at that back dock there, and they only need to see a certain specified amount of information. They'll just hammer away on the keyboard and fill in a little bit of that information, perhaps the serial number, model of the equipment that's coming back, and then other people who will interact with that as a case and work that piece of equipment until it's ready to go back out in the field can see other more detailed portions of that record and interact with those, but we don't have to show all of that to absolutely everybody. That particular customer has taken it one step further, and they've actually added a third form, and that would be for the customers whom have sent the equipment back. So if they log into the CRM system, they then have a third view which only shows them a handful of fields and not all of the internal terminology that the company uses to analyze and work the cases associated with the equipment that's been returned. So hopefully that is a vivid word picture for you all, and you get the sense of why one might consider using different role-based forms for different entities or record types here in CRM. And I want to say that when I say entity, I don't want that to be a scary word. For me, that's just, it's another word for, say, bucket. It's like a bucket of records. So an opportunity is an entity, an account is an entity, a contact is an entity, etc. So with that, we've covered goals, charts, dashboards, the different browsers, mobile, dialogues, different views, role-based forms, marketplace, solutions management, Outlook, and I will just sort of end this segment by saying that the system is incredibly extensible. So if there are things that you think you want to know whether or not the system can do, or you think it might be able to do, or it hasn't been able to do in the past, It is so much more flexible now than it used to be. I would highly encourage you to reach out to any of us, either myself or to Diane or even to Cheryl. Raise your hands and she'll ask the questions of me. I'm more than happy to speak to those to the best of my ability. But at this point, I think we had slated to turn things over to questions, and I will ask Cheryl to go ahead and remove the mute on everybody. So if there are questions, we can start to take those. Cheryl, are you still with me?
I am. I'm sorry. I don't think there's any right now, but if you want to cover those last two slides and then keep your contact information up for a couple minutes in case some do come in.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So if you have additional things that you'd like to learn, you can go to any of these URLs that you have here. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and put my contact information as well as Diane's up on the screen again. And I'm going to hang out here for a few more minutes. We do have another half hour slated for this webinar, so if you'd like to hang back and ask questions, I'm more than happy to stay here and answer them. If you didn't see something that you were hoping to see inside of CRM 2011 or what's new in CRM 2011, please let me know and maybe we can run through that. I will tell you this is not an extensive list of everything that's available in CRM 2011, but it is the highlight. There are lots of really cool things available, but not everything is digestible by a broad audience like this. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to hopefully hearing from any of you.
Brian, we do have one question here to get us started. What are new and what is the best way to get started?
I'm sorry, what are new?
I think he's referring to what are the new features, if you could list those again, and then how to get started if they are to want to. Okay.
So I'll say this list that we sort of went through here a little bit more slowly. Hopefully that'll give everybody a chance to sort of digest it, think about all the things that we just looked at. But goals, charts, dashboards, the browser agnostic nature of CRM these days. I don't know whether or not you would consider that a new feature per se, but it's something that's worth noting. All the different mobile access that's available now that wasn't previously available, apps and mobile versions of CRM, et cetera, and that includes offline through Outlook. Dialogues, the setting of default views, role-based forms, the marketplace, solutions management. There is an all-new Outlook interface, so those of you who maybe have utilized 4.0 or 3.0 with the older versions of Outlook, you may have noticed that it looks completely different these days. It gives you a lot more functionality, and it's more heavily tied into CRM and into Outlook. So that's completely new. And I guess I would say beyond that, just the on-premise versus the online version, as well as extensibility. So again, by no means a really extensive complete list, but I'd say that we hit most of the high points. And then in terms of getting started, I would encourage you to reach out to either myself or Diane if you have very specific questions, and I'd be more than happy to address those for you or with you. But you are more than welcome to take a spin yourself. You can go to crm.dynamics.com, and you can take this for a test drive. And you can spin up a 30-day trial and just sort of work with some of the sample data, try and create an account, create a contact, create a lead, import, export data, even create orders and things of that nature. So it's all freely available for you to do whatever you like. There's no commitment needed. You don't have to put in any credit card information or anything like that. I personally spin up a whole lot of instances. I think I might annoy Microsoft a little bit. But hopefully that helps. Please let me know if I didn't address your questions.
We have a couple of hands raised, so I'm going to unmute them one by one so we don't get background noise. So I have Irvin here who has a question for you. Go ahead.
Hello, Irvin. Hello.
We'll skip.
I'm not hearing anything, sure.
Okay, let's skip him for a second. We have Dave. I'll unmute him. Dave, you're on.
Are we having troubles unmuting people, perhaps?
No, it's unmuting. Oh, okay.
Thought I heard some background noise, so I thought we were there. Well, if you prefer to type your questions, please feel free. It seems as though we're having some troubles with the audio, so I apologize for that.
Looks like a couple of people don't have microphones. So I think there is a call-in number. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Or how about that?
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah, so if you're having trouble with audio, go ahead and use that call-in number and we'll be able to hear you that way as well.
Great. Any other questions that you've seen people type out?
Just give me a couple seconds here.
Thanks, everybody, for bearing with us. We'll try and solve this problem as quickly as possible.
I think we're going to have a couple people that wanted to ask questions try to call in here, Brian, so should be a couple minutes here.
That sounds fine. I see that people have already started logging off, so if you'd like to log off too, that's quite all right. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but if you'd like to stick around and listen to some of those questions, you're more than welcome to. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, so thank you so much.